want to talk about soothing and how to soothe ourselves without emotionally eating. So the definition of soothing is to gently calm or to reduce pain or discomfort. And the root word of soothing means to verify. And that's going to be important later on. So, as you know, some of you know, if you are not brand new, that we talk about the 4 coping strategies. And this is part of hypervigilance. If you're in the hypervigilant route in the foundational trainings, we talk about the 4 coping strategies. And the 4 coping strategies are to control, to soothe, to deny, or to resign. Now, soothing, when done with integrity, can be a positive coping strategy. I would say, as of right now, the others, like controlling, denying, and resigning, we can get rid of those. We don't really need those the more conscious and awake we become. But soothing we need. The problem is that as emotional eaters, we've learned to soothe ourselves in unhealthy ways, like eating to ground, eating too much, eating to ignore, eating when we're not hungry. So this is really about how can we take the core of soothing and use it in a different way to really maximize what we need on a physical and emotional level. So soothing, when done with integrity, is nourishing. And it actually hits all 4 of our emotional food groups. So remember that our 4 emotional food groups are love, safety, a sense of belonging, and happiness. And when we soothe ourselves with integrity, it hits all of those things. Soothing can make us feel safe. Soothing can make us feel loved. Soothing can bring a sense of belonging, particularly with ourselves. And soothing can create a sense of happiness as well. Now, the first soothing that we experienced as human beings came from our mothers, which is why our relationship with food is very interconnected in an unconscious way to our mothers. And I'm not talking about the relationship that you have or don't have with your mother now as an adult, or even 10 years ago. What I'm talking about is when you were a newborn, a young child, 3, 4, 5, 6, even 10. You were being trained unconsciously how to soothe. And I'm not going to go into the whole mother thing. That is definitely a topic for a different day. But just so you know that where some of these origins with soothing strategies come in is when we are babies and when we are young children. And it is this repetitive training that is often unconscious, where we are trained on how to soothe ourselves and how to actually allow others to soothe us as well. Now, as you grow and as you heal your relationship with food, it will require you to individuate from the way things were done by your family. So in other words, to individuate from how your mother may have soothed you or someone else has soothed you so that you can learn how to soothe yourself. as an adult, then we are, we have so many more choices to how we soothe ourselves, and you get to consciously create what soothing looks like for you now. And that may mimic some of the things that you learned growing up, and that may be completely different, and it may be a hybrid, and it may be a new invention. But either way, just because something was done or taught in the past does not mean that it's the way that it has to be now. We have the opportunity to change. And the main question that sort of want to be chewing on, so to speak, is how do I mother myself? And I want you to write that down. Of how do I mother myself? Because that essentially is what is going to support the freedom from emotional eating, is the ability to mother yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. Now, I often hear about this fear that if you heal your emotional eating, then you'll never get to rest, there'll never be time to escape, there'll be all this pain, and you'll just have to be on all the time. And that is so not true. We do not have to be on all the time, but the ways that we turn off and either disconnect, unwind, comfort ourselves, soothe ourselves will change. The ways that I take care of myself now are so different even than 2 years ago, or even 4 years ago, or even 10 years ago, because my emotional maturity is different, my relationship with food is different, and the same with you. It's a continual evolution. So I'm not saying that you can never watch Netflix ever again. That's not what freedom from emotional eating looks like. But it's the way that you're using it that will change. So learning to soothe ourselves is a very important part of emotional maturity. And I want you to write that down. That soothing yourself is a very important part of emotional maturity. And as I shared before, the good news is that it starts to fill our emotional needs. It starts to fill our, our buckets, our internal buckets, where we can often feel that sort of hollowness when they aren't being served or supported. So the way that I'd like you to think about soothing is first from the source. So there is self-soothing, which comes from you. And then there are outside sources of soothing. Oftentimes when we are children, a lot of our soothing is coming from an outside source. Although we still do self-source it, like thumb sucking and other baby things. But there are two types of soothing. There's the self-sourcing, which we're looking to really amplify. And then there's the outside soothing. And then there's two qualities of soothing. There's conscious, compassionate soothing. And then there's numbing. So the direction that we are looking to travel into is being able to self-source your soothing and keeping it conscious and compassionate. And we want to move away from being dependent on outside sources and numbing. So a great example of an outside source often used for numbing is food. I know that when I was emotionally eating, it was like food was my safety blanket. And if I didn't have snacks in my bag or my drawer or somewhere in my apartment, it would just send me into a tizzy. Because I had this attachment to food that if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be okay. Now, things are very different. But we can also use things like other people. We can be dependent on other people to sort of like shift our mindset or make us feel better. And yeah, in some cases that's needed and necessary, but it should never take the place of what we are capable of growing into in our relationship with ourselves. So what is an example or examples of this self-sourced, conscious, compassionate soothing that we are looking to create? So I want to give you a few things that you can add to your soothing menu when it comes to this self-sourced, conscious, compassionate soothing. And the thing that I want to say the most before we go into these is that all healthy soothing is gentle. It is gentle, it is gradual, and it is compassionate. What the ego mind, where our emotional eating patterns live, will want when it comes to soothing is it'll want it to be fast, it'll want instantaneous results, and it'll want it to go from like black to white. And that's usually what we get when we start to use different substances like food or alcohol or shopping or things like that. Is like we want it to be hard, we want it to be fast. It's like, get me out of here. But with soothing, healthy, conscious, compassionate soothing is gentle and it's gradual. So as we go through some of these examples, and if you're feeling like I'm not feeling it yet, like I'm not feeling soothed, gentle, gradual process. So the first form of self-soothing is with a form of a loving touch. So take your arms and wrap them around yourself and just start to rub your arms. And just notice what this feels like. So it probably feels weird, but it probably also kind of feels good. And then now take a moment and close your eyes and just bring your attention to your hands on your own arms. Just again, continuing to rub very gently. And just noticing what that feels like. Change up your pressure a little bit. Perhaps you want the soothing to feel a little bit more intense, or see if you can go a little bit softer. But just noticing what it feels like to have your hands on your body in this way. Keep going. Remember, it's gentle and it's gradual. And take a moment to just stop your rubbing and then just give yourself a squeeze. So squeezing yourself like you're giving yourself a hug. Don't let go. Keep squeezing. Again, just noticing how this feels. Continue to squeeze and take a deep breath in and let it out. Just allow your hands to float down. Keep your eyes closed. And just notice what you feel. And when you're ready, just allow your eyes to open. Feeling a little bit different. So this we can call it the self-hug, is available to you everywhere you go at any time. You can do the rubbing and you can do the squeezing. Sometimes I will do this when I get into bed, just as a way to help me like transition into sleep and take off the day. And it feels really good. So one example of physical way to self-soothe. Another example is with your tongue. So if you imagine that this is your mouth and this is, let's pretend this is your tongue. You're going to take your tongue and you are going to stroke the top of your mouth, keeping your mouth closed. You're going to stroke the roof of your mouth with your tongue like that. So take a moment and just try it. Taking your tongue, slowly stroking the top of your mouth, as if you had candy or taffy stuck to the roof of your mouth, just stroking the top of your mouth. And take a moment and close your eyes. See if you can slow it down. Gently stroking the top and the roof of your mouth. So what this does is that there are a set of nerves connected to the roof of your mouth, and this is literally stroking your nervous system. So this again is a technique that you can do anywhere, anytime. You can do it during times of difficulty. You can do it when you're just going to the bathroom. You can do it before you go to the dentist, after you go to the dentist, anytime. This again is just a way to start to shift the nervous system, very much like the hug. So these are gentle ways to shift the nervous system out of a fight, flight, freeze state into a rest, restore, rejuvenate state. Another example of soothing can be done with your breath. There are many, many different breathing techniques. Honestly, the easiest one is just turning your attention to your breath and taking 3 deep breaths. Throughout our work, you know that I work with various different kinds of breath, and we've done it together on the escapes as well. But I'm not going to go deep into all these techniques, but breathing can, again, shift your nervous system from that fight, flight, freeze state into the rest, restore, rejuvenate state, which is what soothing is really all about, is being able to shift your nervous system from that fight, flight, freeze state into the rest, restore, rejuvenate state. Now, the method of soothing that I see as the biggest opportunity for development for each of you is the soothing that is called self-talk. So the way that you talk to yourself in your head can either make you feel safe or it can make you feel on edge. It can add stress to chaos, or it can help you soothe and relax and calm down. So in foundational training number 8, and I believe we did it on the spring of 2018 escape, I talked about really starting to calm the nervous system. And one of the ways that we just start with self-talk is by using a term of endearment. So basically like a pet name for yourself. So something like sweetheart, lovey, beautiful. Now, for me, those don't really resonate. So my actual term of endearment with myself is just using my name. Seems silly, but for me, that's what works. So for me, when I'm talking to myself, I'm usually saying something like, oh, Jessica. Oh, Jessica. Oh, Jessica. Something along those lines is usually the way that I start talking to myself. Now, using a term of endearment with yourself, again, starts to shift the nervous system. Now, what we're talking about is invisible. And again, you want to watch out for the ego mind coming in being like, this is silly. Give me something I don't know, or something else like that. And I want to warn you that if any part of you is cringing or discounting at these techniques or this self-talk, it is simply a sign of how hard you are on yourself. Again, these techniques are simple, they are gradual, and they are gentle, but they work. So we have to start breaking the pattern of being a bitch in your own head and really starting to shift into being compassionate with yourself. Now, as I told you before, the root word of soothing means to verify. And what's really important about this is that a lot of soothing, when done at its very best and at its core, is simply acknowledging what you are going through. That's pretty much it. So this is simply about positively acknowledging and affirming whatever you are experiencing. So it could sound something like, yes, this is hard. Or you did a great job. Or you know what, you did some really hard things today. It can sound so many different ways. It doesn't have to sound like the examples that I just gave. But a clear distinction of what soothing is not. Soothing is not, what's wrong with you? You're not enough. Look at what you did. Shaming yourself, embarrassing yourself, or anything like that. That is not soothing. That is the opposite. And that will actually drive you to eat. But soothing, again, is that gentle, compassionate, verifying, acknowledging, using a term of endearment to support yourself with whatever you are experiencing in the moment. So let's practice. Flip to a clean sheet of paper. And I want you to start with just acknowledging or a word or some sort of term of endearment as if you were writing to yourself. So for me, I would just start with like, oh, Jessica. Or for you, on your paper there, you might start with sweetheart. Sweetheart Larissa. Beautiful Jill. Awesome Deb. Whatever that is for you. If this feels awkward, keep going with it. This is new then. Keep going. So we start with a term of endearment just to start your writing to yourself. And then I want you to take a moment connecting with your heart in the same way that a loving mother, guide, being, person would say something really loving to you, I want you to write a few lines of compassion to yourself right there on the paper. So perhaps it's just, loving Larissa, you are doing a great job. Let this be your experience and private with yourself. In the same way, a loving mother would come and whisper to a child how much they are loved, safe, doing a good job. And take about 15 seconds to wrap this up. Keep it simple. You can always come back to this later. But I want you to now read out loud. You are all on mute. Read what you wrote. So read out loud to yourself what you just wrote. Take a deep breath in. Let it out. So, out of all the practices that I gave as examples, this one of self-talk with yourself is so important, particularly for you guys. I can't tell you how many times I have to tell each of you how hard you are being on yourself. And if there's one thing that I want you to really get through this experience, is to start talking to yourself with compassion, with strength, and with grace. Because a lot of the things that you say to yourself, you would never say to anyone else. And if that's the case, then you don't deserve to be told those things. So like everything, this is a practice. So if writing it out and reading it back to yourself is where we begin, great. If you just start with a simple phrase of, oh, Jessica, you did some hard things today. Good job. We start there. But it develops so that when shit hits the fan and things get real, it starts to become more of your default rather than the toxic thoughts of the mind. Deep breath in, let it out.